Milo, you got a big Drudge link on your piece that led our site last night about Donald Trump's speech. Let's pull the camera back for a second, Milo, and talk overall. You've been a critical voice in London, talking about the collapse of Christendom, the collapse of the Judeo-Christian West, its values, what it stands for, what its meaning's been for millennia in this onslaught of the Islamic world. How do you put Trump's speech in context?
Well, Trump's really the only person running for president, and perhaps the only person out of all of the candidates, right back to those crazy debates with dozens and dozens of Republicans, really maybe the only candidate who's shown any awareness of the importance of culture, not just in this election, but in the world generally at the moment. And he's definitely the only person out of the two people that are left that appreciates that, we're at war. We are, we're in a struggle between Islamization, which is creeping into Europe, and the sort of authoritarian, regressive worldview rented by the Islamic world, and freedom, the West, the principles on which America was founded, modern democrats and liberal capitalism. These two things are in conflict, and it doesn't seem to me that Hillary Clinton realizes there's a war on. So although some people like Trump for the free speech and the anti-political correctness and the light mischievous trolling elements, once in a while you're reminded about how serious a candidate he is too, and how he's the only person speaking with the appropriate level of seriousness and plainness about what we have to do to protect ourselves. And in my view, his ideological tests for immigration are the first indication that anybody in this race so far, this cycle, is treating the Muslim problem seriously.
Let's talk about that, because obviously the media this morning, Morning Joe and CNN, these guys, their heads are blowing up about his. Actually, he kind of came off it. He said not a temporary ban whatsoever. He talked about extreme vetting, which is a serious vetting, right. And he laid out some conditions for that. You want to walk through that, Milo?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's basically talking about doing what a lot of other countries do too, which is a sort of ideological vetting. And then I presume he'd like to do a lot more serious intelligence vetting as well. We have something similar in Britain. We have sort of values, citizenship test when people want to come over. It's a perfectly respectable, reasonable thing to do. It's particularly sensible in the case of America because, Britain is a country founded on geography, ethnicity, history, all the rest of it. America is a country founded on values. And America can only survive if people coming to America share those values, because without those values, there's nothing to bind America together. You guys haven't been, on that island together pointing in the same direction for 2,000 years in a way that some European countries have. You really only have a couple of hundred years, and a couple of hundred years based on principle, on values, on ideas, on the Constitution, on the First and Second Amendment. Without those things, America is nothing. But those things are the best basis to found a country, and America is the best country yet devised by man. It is the greatest country in the history of human civilization. But it can only survive if everybody coming to America believes in those principles. So Trump, all Trump is doing is asking immigrants to respect the basis on which America was founded. That strikes me as eminently reasonable.
What do you think about the rest of his war plan? I mean, he was quite specific about things he wanted to do. Of course, Michael Steele and some others saying it was just a bunch of slogans, but it was actually, I believe, a quite coherent, well thought through speech, well delivered. What was your thinking besides the vetting and who he allowed in? What do you think about the rest of his what he talked about in taking the war to the enemy?
Well, I wonder if he's been talking to Eric Prince, the former founder of Blackwater, who I know has been a guest on your show and was a guest on my podcast, which you can listen to at Breitbart and Podcast One, the Milo Yiannopoulos show. I had Eric Prince on last week, and he talked about his 3-point plan, which I think he discussed with you first of all on this show. I wonder if he's been listening to Eric. It's interesting that all of the people who have really serious, credible, realistic battle plans for defeating ISIS all seem to be Trump supporters. And it doesn't matter whether you find Trump personally objectionable or you don't like his personality or whatever, but I've found it very telling. If you look around in American public life at the people who actually, are credible and capable of taking on this Islamic threat, they all seem to be lining up behind Trump, I think because they recognize whatever else the candidate is, he doesn't have this sort of Muslim pandering globalist weakness that the Clintons do. So I wonder if he's been listening. It seems very obvious to me that Yeah, I mean, so Eric talks about going and doing this kind of, Vietnam style, take out a couple of.
Yeah, it's the Phoenix program where the Phoenix program
Phoenix
was
program,
that was a very paramilitary and CIA and special forces and also Marines did a very detailed job of kind of cleaning up the Viet Cong.
I wonder, is Hillary Clinton, who's been paying her mortgage, with money from the Saudis for however many decades it is now, is this a woman who's really going to have the resolve necessary to take the head off the snake? Because we're not just talking about sending a few mercenaries into the desert, sending them to Raqqa, Syria, whatever, and fighting these guys in pickup trucks. What we need to do is address the problem at its root, which is where the money starts. Always follow the money, which the Clintons are good at traditionally. Follow the money, take the fight to the people who are funding these guys. Will Hillary Clinton have the willing or the ability to really do what it takes to do what is necessary to end Islamic terrorism in the Middle East? I don't think so.
Do you think, what about this, the media as a Praetorian Guard for Hillary Clinton and literally every day when you start the day, it's just a complete pile-on on Trump. How do you think he punches back through that? How does he break through the wall of the mainstream media, or does he?
Well, even Glenn Greenwald, who is no fan of Trump, has said that the American media is practically 100% against Trump. But, it's sort of not the worst thing in the world for two reasons. One is he has shown himself to be spectacularly good at surviving in hostile media environments. But two, and this is something the left has been forgetting recently, I think they're underestimating people's natural suspicion, intelligence, inclination for mischief and for irreverence and for kicking back against authority. For me, and I think most voters are the same, for me, when I hear everybody push very forcefully in one direction, it makes me suspicious. When I hear all of the media, desperately and frenetically and loudly kind of pushing me in one direction and telling me that if I believe anything different, I must be some kind of bigot, that rings alarm bells in the back of my head. And looking out the media landscape, the way that people are reporting on Trump, how they're talking about him, and the manner in which they're walking in lockstep, if I were a voter, I think something was up.
Milo Yiannopoulos out of London runs our high-tech group. Also, he oversees the Social Justice Warrior Commando Unit at Breitbart. By the way, Milo, just you're back. Your American fanboys are and fangirls. And I might add Angela Barrett and Caroline McGarrett's into that fangirl category. Everybody wants to know when you're returning to the United. I'm getting some stink eye from the other side of the glass right now. The producer booth. When are you back in the United States? When's the tour start?
The tour starts again middle of September, I think the 11th or the 12th, going back to Texas, the great state of Texas. And then we're going to be going all over the United States over the following 4 months. I'm doing 40 dates, probably by the end 50 or 60 dates, with some pending confirmations. So if you've missed me, America, I'm sorry for being away so long, but I am coming back. And I'll be back in New York, I think, for some meetings and some TV stuff beginning of September, and then the tour starts September 11th or 12th, so you can look out for that. We have some spectacular fun planned. If you followed the tour previously, you're aware that I have a lot of fun on college campuses, drawing attention to the lunacy of the modern social justice left, the feminists, the Black Lives Matter crazies. The problem with this is, students have always been crazy, but this kind of crazy is finding its way up into politics and into the media, and it needs to be cut off at the root, and that is on campuses. So that's what I'm out there doing in America, and that starts again in September. So look out for that on Breitbart, because there's going to be some fantastic videos and coverage of that.
Milo, thank you very much. His article is still linked up on Drudge. You can get it on Breitbart on the homepage. Milo, thank you very much for joining us today on Breitbart News Daily.
Thanks, Chief.